Welcome everyone to another enlightening episode of Healing Pathways, Navigating Transformation with Juanita. I'm your host, Henry Woodcock. Joining me is a transpersonal therapist and founder of Energy Gateways, Juanita Puddifoot. Today we're going to be talking about how DMP, Deep Memory Process, is used. A client comes to explore a particular issue in their life that they're having problems with. It's affected them in some shape or form. One key aspect of DMP is looking at soul wounds. Joining us is our expert and qualified DMP practitioner and trainer, Juanita, who will shed light on what soul wounds are. Welcome, Juanita.
Hi, Henry. It's good to be here. In DMP, the first areas we look for the causes of issues in clients' lives is their experiences from their childhood or events in their adulthood. We also look at what we call soul wounds. These are deep-seated residues that affect a person on a spiritual level and filter their way into the person's life today. These can be the energy of unfinished business of a person's past life or the unresolved issues from their ancestors. There are also soul wounds that are linked to the experiences and decisions a person's spirit makes before coming into this lifetime. This includes what attracts the spirit to be part of a particular family and what are the life experiences they wish to have at some level. Other stages of life before life that may influence a person in their current life are the experiences of conception or being in their mother's womb and then the physical impact from their birth.
So these are like pre-birth choices and influences?
Exactly. We need to look at the life cycle that includes the spiritual dimensions before birth and then beyond life after death. One of the important stages of life and one that can develop soul wounds can stem from the experiences a person had while in their mother's womb. During gestation, the baby is obviously connected physically via the umbilical cord. The baby is also immersed in darkness and does not have the same awareness of being a separate human being or a separate consciousness from their mother. When exploring this stage with clients, they often describe feeling in a sea of emotions and thoughts, not really being aware of theirs and what belongs to their mother and what belongs to them. Some clients have gone back to their family to investigate what was happening during their mother's pregnancy. And they've discovered that a family member had died and the mother was overwhelmed with grief and loss, was depressed for a time. These emotions and thoughts would have had a profound impact on the baby. Babies within the womb are affected both positively and negatively by what our mother drinks, eats, inhales, how she feels, what she thinks, and what she experiences, including how others around her impact her life. Some clients have a sense of carrying loss, low energy, that they cannot seem to change, and exploring their pre-birth stage of life can bring huge healing and release when they have the insight that this feeling does not actually belong to them.
That's fascinating. I never considered how those early experiences might shape us. What other types of soul wounds does DMP address?
We also explore the influences from our ancestors, generational influences or unfinished business that can affect us. For instance, if our ancestors faced significant traumas like famine or starvation, their unresolved energy, their feelings, their thoughts can carry through generations and impact individuals today. A case example was of a client in her life today who had an eating issue and did not understand why she had the compulsion to eat so much, and yet she never physically felt full. Using DMP, we discovered that she had a group of ancestral energies that were hanging around her who did not realize they were dead, and that they were unresolved from their lives due to having died in a famine. The drive to eat was coming from those ancestors, who were still feeling the desire to search for food, to eat continuously, and yet were never actually satisfied. Unresolved stories from the past have a huge effect on our lives today. If our listeners were to start exploring their family's history patterns and particular themes may start to surface. When the client case I mentioned about the food issue, she started investigating and found that her mother had issues about food and that her grandmother did. And then she discovered there was a branch of the family who'd left Ireland during the potato blight famine.
Can these ancestral issues have a lingering long-term effect on our lives today?
It is important to understand that many ancestors die and cannot let go of the issues they carry, and they do not want to let go of being with the family. There are some that die happy and fulfilled, so do not negatively impact future generations. It is just that for some people, the ancestors' residues have such an impact that it's important to heal these. To give you a range of case examples of unfinished influences and how they can affect clients today, here are a few examples. Ancestor stories of betrayal can filter through from the past today, and the client may be feeling this as not being able to trust anyone who is close to them, not wanting them to let them down in some way, especially with those partners, the family, loved ones who they feel close to. If you look at other ancestors, the ones that maybe were forced into migrating, having to leave their home and country, or being religiously persecuted, including being involved with war or being unjustly accused of a crime and executed. All of these are unresolved, unhealed stories that can have a devastating impact on a client's life today. DMP works to identify and transform these, helping our ancestors find peace and healing and to really lift the negative impact on a client's life today.
You've also mentioned past lives. How does DMP approach this concept?
In DMP, we explore past lives to understand what are the unresolved issues that may have been carried into the present. The concept of past lives aligns with the Tibetan Buddhist philosophy of the spirit's journey beyond death. Whereas ancestor energy is considered to be separate from the client's, past lives are seen to be part of the client's own soul journey. We explore past lives to bring to consciousness their story, the situation around their death, what happens to their spirit after death, and what is negatively carried over impacting the client today. Clients report that there is a subtle difference in connecting with ancestor energy compared to their past lives. Interestingly, how we work with these stories from past lives and ancestors is the same. We explore their life story, their death, beyond death, identify what is needing expression and transformation. The unresolved stories can also be very similar, such as the death in a battle scene, loss of a loved one in an earthquake, trauma of being abandoned and separated from the family, betrayal in business, shunned and judged unfairly.
I wonder if it matters if someone does not believe in past lives.
This is an important question to answer. I have worked with people who say, I don't believe in any of this past life stuff or this soul wounds concept, but I just want to feel different. I've got this issue and I need it worked on. In DMP, it's not necessary for anyone to believe in anything. We can work with the framework of a story to enable the unconscious to express itself. Stories can help bring to light suppressed emotions and thoughts and physical sensations, giving the client the permission to make it up, to pretend, to be an actor that is immersed in a play or fantasy helps free the inner depths and allow expression and release.
Can you give an example of how a past life issue might manifest in a current life?
For our listeners, they may like to listen to the more in-depth podcast called The Difference Between Past Lives and Ancestors. This goes into more detail about the spirit realms and the Tibetan philosophy of the death transition and beyond. But to give an example, if a past life character died on a battlefield with a strong desire to return to their loved ones at home, that energy, that spirit, may enter this current life with a feeling of constant sense of not belonging or constantly searching for something undefined.
That's compelling. What about spirit attachments? How does DMP deal with those?
Spirit attachments refer to energies that do not belong to the client. They are not past lives or ancestors. These can be human spirits of the dead, of strangers, or non-human energies. In DMP, we use different techniques to identify and clear these attachments, freeing the client from their negative influences.
Can you share an example of a spirit attachment case you've encountered?
Certainly. I had a client who felt an unusual level of sadness and loss, but did not feel it was connected to her life. Using DMP, we discovered that she'd been on holiday, travelling around, obviously visiting places and having a great time, and she went to a certain area called the Painted Desert in the US. There she had picked up a spirit of a Native American woman who had died hundreds of years ago. The story of the spirit was one of loss and grief, having lost her husband and child. Overcome with unconsolable emotions, she had gone into the desert to die. The spirit had stayed around the location for years, repeating and staying stuck in her loss and grief. Occasionally, she noticed people passing through the location until one day a woman seemed to attract her attention. This happened to be my client, who had stopped to absorb the beauty of the place and yet at some point felt a deep connection and sadness which at the time she could not explain. Helping the spirit of the woman remember her death and be reunited with the spirits of her ancestors, her husband, her children, enabled the spirit to let go of the client. And then following the session, the client reported back that she felt a complete lightness and a sense of huge relief.
That's a very powerful example, Juanita. Can you expand on what you mean when you mention non-human attachments?
Yeah. Non-human attachments are energies that haven't had a human life, but still attached to people. This can happen during times of trauma or when a person's out of alignment, such as unconscious, or their energy field is disrupted. For instance, I had a client with a physical discomfort in her foot, and using DMP, we discovered an earth spirit of a gnome had mistakenly entered her foot, thinking it was his home.
It's interesting you mentioned earlier, you don't have to believe in any of this, just an openness to work with the story. As I can imagine, there may be many people who could accept the concept of ancestor influences, but may find it hard to be open to earth energies.
Yes, I understand that not all the concepts I talk about will be completely taken on board by everyone listening. If you have an issue that is impacting your life negatively and there is a process to work with this and bring change, I'm sure people will try DMP. After all, you do not have to believe in anything, but work with a story to allow suppressed emotions and thoughts to be expressed. DMP is a versatile approach that can work with anything, as I've come to understand from the many years of helping clients.
This has been an enlightening conversation as usual, Juanita. Thank you so much for sharing your insights on deep memory process. I'm sure our listeners have gained a lot from this.
It's been my pleasure, Henry. Thank you for having me.
Thank you to our listeners for joining us on Healing Pathways, Navigating Transformation with Juanita. If today's episode resonated with you, don't hesitate to reach out to Juanita. Her work is transformative and she's here to support you on your journey. Until next time, this is Energy Gateway signing off. Take care. For more detailed information, visit the website energygateways.com or on YouTube search for Energy Gateways with Juanita.